Hello, everyone. This is Frank Nunez, and welcome to Teachly University. In this lecture, we're going to be discussing the power and importance of focus and how we can harness our focus and be able to observe, pay attention, and to select what kind of circumstances or outcomes we wish to see in our lives, whatever that may be. And I want to start the lecture with a quote from Earl Nightingale, who says that we become what we think about most of the time, and that is the strangest secret. So, Earl Nightingale here, and this is actually an excerpt from his lecture or recording, The Strangest Secret, where he discusses how what we choose to think about, what thoughts we entertain, and I think what behaviors we engage in on a daily basis determines the outcome of our life and shapes our not only our personality, but our personal reality. So the strangest secret then, as Earl Nightingale has alluded to in his lectures, is that the secret to achieving success in a desirable life is to become very deliberate with what we focus on, meaning that we have to start paying attention. And if you haven't noticed, in this modern world we live in today, it is very difficult to pay attention because of all the distractions and addictions and things that try to grab our attention every single day. A lot of this is through social media, our cell phones, a 24-hour news cycle, mass marketing, consumer marketing, where we're told that we're only going to be happy and feel a certain way if we buy a particular product, and so on and so forth. And it is this mass distraction that we're living in today that has prevented so many of us from being able to pay attention to what is going on outside of us, but more importantly, what is going on within us, within our internal world and within our thoughts and what we're thinking of, and more specifically, how our thoughts are shaping our circumstances and what results they are producing. So I think that to start this lecture, what I want to stress is the importance of how we need to start paying attention. And that if we are to improve our lot in life, improve our circumstances, and to become happier, more fulfilled individuals, we need to start paying attention. And that requires some work and dedication, which we'll discuss here a little bit later on in this lecture, on how we can better pay attention and focus to get better results. So I want to quote from Cal Newport from his book, Deep Work Rules for Focused Success. And he's been an advocate for really how we need to disconnect from much of our technology and emails and social media. It's not to say we should never use them, but we really need to start getting back to the basics when it comes to focus and how we use our minds. So Cal Newport says that we tend to place a lot of emphasis on our circumstances, assuming that what happens to us or fails to happen determines how we feel. From this perspective, the small-scale details of how you spend your day aren't that important, because what matters are the large-scale outcomes, such as whether or not you get a promotion or move to that nicer apartment. According to Gallagher, decades of research contradict this understanding. Our brains instead construct a worldview based on what we pay attention to. So it isn't necessarily our circumstances that shape our emotions and how we feel, but ultimately what we choose to pay attention to. And chances are much of what we pay attention to, what we choose to focus on, are past experiences, past trauma, past circumstances and events that have occurred. We tend to focus on what we don't have. We're always feeling this emotion of lack, where we feel like we never have enough. We're always measuring ourselves against other people who we deem have more than we do. And I believe it was Charlie Munger who said that it isn't greed that has created so much problems for us, but rather jealousy, what leads people to make, especially many poor financial decisions. We try to keep up with the Joneses by trying to get the nicer car, the nicer home, etc., without thinking about if that's what we really want. And we stay distracted from what it is that we truly desire, which chances are it is to be our authentic selves and to make the most out of our lives and to be who we really are and do the things that matter most to us. And chances are what brings the most happiest or happiness in life isn't necessarily the material goods, but rather it is having this internal locus of control, where we're entered the state of flow, where we're no longer enslaved by our circumstances, but we have much more control of our inner world that can shape our outer world. And it is this control, this stillness, that I believe is when we enter this flow state that leads to much more joy, fulfillment, and improved productivity and results that can help improve our lives for the better. So to quote B. Alan Wallace from his book, The Attention Revolution, Unlocking the Power of the Focused Mind, Alan says, a settling your mind in its natural state that entails releasing all grasping onto the future and the past, but instead grasping onto cognitions or cogitations about the present. Letting your awareness rest in its own place, naturally luminous and still. He further adds, when attention is impaired, it detracts from everything we do. And when it is well focused, it enhances everything we do. Great quote by Alan Wallace. And I find what's fascinating here when he says that settling your mind in its natural state. What does he mean by this? Well, he means that it is natural for us to be focused, to be present, to be fully engaged in life. The problem is for many of us, and I'm guilty of this, and I think all of us are to agree, is that we're not fully engaged in the river and flow of life. Rather than we remain distracted and addicted to our technologies, on social media, our cell phones, on negative self-chatter, addicted to the emotions and experiences of the past that continue to shape and create the same results and the same predictable future. So it makes sense then, and I think many in the personal development space, and even psychologists now, I think, are discussing the importance of meditation, and more specifically, how meditation helps us stay in the present moment, where we're not fixated on the past or worried about some horrible event in the future, but where we're in the present moment. When we're in the present moment, then, that's when we let go of the traumas of the past and the worries of the future, and we live in the present, where by living in the present moment, we then become agents of creation, meaning that when we're in the present moment, it improves our focus and our awareness, and we begin to develop new insights that maybe we didn't recognize before. When we're still, when we're meditating, where we're in silence, and when we stop constantly checking into our Twitter or X feeds or Instagram, TikTok, etc., we then can remove the shackles that have been holding us back, and we can utilize our minds much more efficiently to come to new revelations, new ideas, and solutions to problems we may not have recognized before. And that starts with settling into the present moment, and we'll add further to this a little bit later on that idea. To further quote Alan Wallace, he says that God, the soul, salvation, consciousness, love, free will, and purely spiritual causation may seem far more real to you than elementary particles and energy fields. I suggest if you were able to focus your attention at will, you could actually choose the universe you appear to inhabit. This is, in my view, a very profound statement. Sometimes when reading this at first glance, it may seem trivial, unrealistic, or odd at first. And I think it's easy to be skeptical that you can simply choose the universe you appear in. But that is a very profound statement. We hear the terms of manifestation and law of attraction, and we hear a lot of these terms, especially thanks to the groundbreaking book and film, The Secret. And there's a lot of skepticism, I think, behind those terms of the law of attraction and manifestation. I think the reason is because they're misdefined or mischaracterized. I don't believe that through manifestation, law of attraction, a pot of gold or a briefcase of money is magically going to show up in your living room. However, when we begin to refocus our attention and we begin to feel as if what we want is already in the present moment, feeling the wish fulfilled, begin to entertain new possibilities. And rather than manifest, and we can avoid using that word for this lecture, we can choose the desired life that we want through our actions and thoughts and behaviors, then life reveals itself to us. New opportunities and experiences occur, through the typical channels of our everyday life. And a very good example is, as say, you choose to have a better job with a higher income, and you choose to focus on that desired result. You think about, you can maybe write down or you record yourself detailing the kind of job that you want, where you have more flexible hours or it's meaningful work, it's more exciting, you get to travel, and you get to utilize your skills and abilities to create value. So if you focus on this long enough and choose that specific outcome, meditate on it, pray on it, and let it go and imagine as if what you want is already in the present moment and assume the wish fulfilled, then somehow that new career, that opportunity will present itself to you in ways you didn't think about. It could be simply while you're at your current job, your employer gives you a promotion. Or maybe you're through a conversation through somebody at a party or an event, they happen to have this opportunity and they disclose it to you. And maybe they want to hire you, etc. So these are just some of the examples of how these opportunities can present themselves to you through the channels of your everyday life. So the reason why focus is so important is because through focus, it allows us to choose desired outcomes and results, to choose a life that we want, to choose a universe we wish to create. And perhaps the reason why there's so much skepticism behind this idea is because we're just not very good observers. And I think even the biggest skeptics of this idea of choosing the universe you want, even these skeptics must concede that we live in a world that is where many of us are highly distracted and addicted to technology, social media, etc. That makes it very hard for us to observe and to think and to choose and to focus. So it makes sense then that this is a subjective exercise, and we want to start taking the time to disconnect from the circumstances and the noise of everyday life and to begin to pay attention and to choose and cultivate the kind of universe and life we wish to inhabit and create. So to quote Joe Dispenza from his book, You Are the Placebo, we're addicted to our beliefs. We're addicted to the emotions of our past. Again, he highlights addiction. We're addicted to these distractions that prevent us from facing what is ailing us and distracts us from focusing on what it is that we truly want. So he says we see our beliefs as truths, not as ideas that we can change. If we have very strong beliefs about something, evidence to the contrary could be sitting right in front of us, but we may not see it because what we perceive is entirely different. We've in fact conditioned ourselves to believe all sorts of things that aren't necessarily true. And many of these things are having a negative impact on our health and happiness, certain cultural beliefs. So we have these addictions, these beliefs that aren't necessarily real. They're not necessarily based on fact, but we make them real. We see them as truths, and we never bother to challenge these ideas because we're so distracted and unfocused. And again, another reason why focus is so important is because we can then start to challenge some of these self-limiting beliefs that have been holding us back. We can begin to question them and say whether or not they're actually real or not. And more often than not, they aren't real. They're not based on fact or reality. And we can, in fact, change our beliefs and choose, as I said before, more empowering beliefs that help us improve our circumstances and transcend and overcome whatever it is we're experiencing. And we have to be honest with ourselves. We've been conditioned to think and act in certain ways that goes against our self-interest. Again, through social media, through mass marketing, we've been hypnotized to think and act in certain ways that aren't producing the kind of desired results we want. So it makes sense then that we have to start questioning not only our beliefs, but the content and ideas that we're exposed to on a daily basis that have been shaping our very beliefs. Many of our beliefs were not created on our own. It was through the repetition of being exposed to this negative content that we've been exposed to that helps shape these beliefs. Hence then, focusing, improving our focus, is necessary if we are to challenge these beliefs and create new, more empowering ones. So Jack Canfield says that everything you want is out there waiting for you to ask. Everything you want also wants you, but you have to take action to get it. People who ask confidently get more than those who are hesitant and uncertain. When you figured out what you want to ask for, do it with certainty, boldness, and confidence. So what Canfield is saying is that, I think, with how it pertains to focus, is that if we are to change and improve our focus, or why focus is so important, is that when we begin to focus on what we want, we become much more empowered and confident when we cultivate these emotions of empowerment, where you believe that what you want is possible and is in fact already here. When we have a desire, it is already in the present moment. And the action then can start by simply writing down what it is that we want. When we write it down, we make it tangible, we make it real to us. So when we write it down, we take some sort of action in that direction of where we want to go. It could be simply sending an email to somebody who can help you achieve a specific goal. It could be simply making a new decision or taking some sort of calculated risk you normally would not have taken. Whatever that may be, just take some sort of action in the direction of where you want to go. And when you do that without worrying about when what you want will enter your reality, when you're not trying to force outcomes, but you're taking inspired action through the state of flow, you will then begin to see new experiences and opportunities enter your life. Things will begin to change when you begin to focus and remove the distractions from your life. Life reveals itself to you when you remove these distractions, when you stop checking into your cell phone all the time, when you stop entertaining negative thoughts and behaviors, when you just pay attention and observe and be still, even for just a few minutes a day. As Jack Canfield says, he adds about this through the power meditation. As you take a few minutes each day to quiet your mind, you discover a nice benefit. Your everyday, ordinary life will begin to seem far more extraordinary. Little things that previously went unnoticed will begin to please you. You'll be more easily satisfied and happier all around. Rather than focusing on what's wrong with your life, you find yourself thinking about and more fully enjoying what's right with your life. The world won't change, but your perception of it will. You start to notice the acts of kindness and caring for other people rather than negativity and anger. So when we take the time to meditate, to pray, to just sit still for a moment without doing anything and just be still, when we calm the mind, that's when our true self emerges. And when our true, authentic self emerges, we begin to see the world in a new way. And as Canfield says, we begin to have new revelations, new ideas we may not have thought of before, that maybe that can help solve a particular problem, or maybe a revelation or idea to start a business, to improve your relationships or your health, to help other people's lives, to create value, maybe to create art, to write a book, painting, music, whatever that may be. When we sit still, the real you emerges, the I am, as Neville says in much of his work. When we are still, the world it becomes our oyster, because we're no longer at bay. We're not enslaved, for that matter, by our circumstances, because we're no longer using our circumstances as a crutch for our emotions, because we shape our emotions by cultivating our internal world, because we have much more control over our thoughts now. That's not to say that we'll never experience negative emotions or thoughts. When we experience these negative emotions or thoughts, and this will happen especially through meditation, where these negative thoughts or ideas or memories may emerge, we don't try to judge them, we just accept them for what they are. And we don't judge or force to banish these thoughts and just accept them, then they no longer have power over us. And that is certainly the power of living and being in the present moment, is that we have much more control of our emotional health. To again quote Joe Dispenza, he says that to be happy with yourself in the present moment while maintaining a dream of your future is a grand recipe for manifestation. When you feel so whole that you no longer care whether it will happen, that's when amazing things materialize before your eyes. I've learned that being whole is the perfect state of creation. I've seen this time and time again in witnessing true healings in people all over the world. They feel so complete that they no longer want, no longer feel lack, and no longer try to do it themselves. They let go, and to their amazement, something greater than they are responds, and they laugh at the simplicity of the process. And this is a process. Now, I don't want you to be intimidated by the word process for this. Perhaps maybe we can even avoid using that word. Rather than it being a process, we're just taking the time every day for just a few minutes to envision a desirable future. We're not worrying about our circumstances. We're not judging what's happening outside of us. We're not worrying about the past or living in the future. We're in the present moment and envisioning the life we want, not through force, not through trying to manipulate, but to become the person we've always wanted to be. And as I said, that when we meditate and pray, we see how then our true self emerges. And when you really think about it, the reason why we want material possessions, and I'm not, of course, saying that we should never want material possessions. I think that our material possessions are wonderful. In my view, they're part of the creative process and self-expression, but we shouldn't rely on them solely for our happiness. Material possessions are simply a side effect of the positive work we've done within our own minds. And when we begin to live in the present moment and forgive ourselves and let go of the mental junk we've been holding in for so long, then we realize that that's really what we've truly been after, was to be our authentic selves. And when you think about why we want immaterial possession, is to feel a certain way. And we begin to discover that's what we truly wanted, was to be our authentic selves. We no longer want to compete. We feel whole and complete. And ironically, when that happens, then that's when life responds. And that's when we can be deliberate creators and choose what we want. And I think that's why maybe perhaps we can call it a process. When we let go and accept and choose what we want by living and embodying the future as if it has already happened, that's when things can really begin to happen. That's when life reveals itself to us. And that's when life really becomes fun and exciting. To quote Dispenza again, he says that most change starts with a simple process of something outside of us altering something inside of us. This is the common way of how many of our personality traits have been shaped. Something outside of us has shaped our personal reality or our personality. But if you begin the inward journey and start to change your inner world of thoughts and feelings, it should create an improved state of well-being. If you keep repeating the process of meditation, then in time epigenetic changes should begin to alter your outer presentation, and you become your own placebo. In his book, You Are the Placebo, Making Your Own Mind, he shows how the power of our thoughts can shape our physical world and our physical bodies. And there's been countless studies that have shown the power of the placebo, where many patients who perhaps are studying an illness think they are being given a medication when in fact they're being given a sugar pill. And they start to see improved health benefits from that pill because of the thoughts they're entertaining, which is the belief that that pill is actually helping them get better. When in fact, it's not the pill, it is the neurochemistry of their own minds and the thoughts that they are focusing on that is improving their health. You can become your own placebo. You can become your own hero and the creator of your own destiny. When you begin to start entertaining new thoughts and feelings that are much more empowering. And this is easier to do when we step away from the distractions and addictions of everyday life. When we sit still and live in the flow of change without constantly checking into our cell phones and social media, etc., we improve our focus and our brain health. And once that begins to happen, this makes it much easier then to make more deliberate choices on how we want to live. But this requires some work on our part and some action. This can't be a passive exercise. You must be deliberate and how you want this change to happen. That requires some work. So to conclude this lecture, I want to quote Grant Cardone from his book 10X, where he says that to really go at it in life and in business, you have to say yes to everything. It's something you'll see successful people do time and again. Not because they can, but because they choose to say yes. Hence the word choose. I want to stress that here. They eagerly engage in life and realize that the word yes has more life and more possibilities in it. What focus does then is that when we realize it or not, when we focus on what we want, we say yes to life. We say yes to taking more action, to being creators, to living the life that we want, and being our authentic selves. When we're distracted, it becomes harder to say yes. And in fact, we say no to life because we're not focused. We're distracted. We're not paying attention to the little intricacies of everyday life, where the little intricacies, the little moments turn out to be the big moments that shape our lives for better or for worse. So it's about paying attention, about saying yes to life. When we focus, pay attention, and be still, and realize that we have the power, or you have the power, to change and be deliberate creators, then that's when life becomes that much better and much more enjoyable, and you can achieve much more in less time. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel where you can watch all my lectures on personal development, entrepreneurship, wealth building, and creativity. Thank you so much and have a great day.